Hello, I am Sophronia Scott, the director of the Alma College MFA in Creative Writing, and welcome to another Faculty Friday. Today I am with fiction faculty member Karen Bender, and her latest book is The New Order. And today we are going to be talking about traits necessary to be a writer. Is that correct, Karen?
Yeah.
And there are such traits.
Well, it's interesting. So one thing I've thought of all my years of teaching, I remember when I was an undergraduate at UC Berkeley and I took a poetry class with Tom Gunn, and I went to his class one day and I asked him, do I have in me to become a writer? And it was so I was asking him, will I live? And so he said, well, you have plenty of talent, but you have to do a lot of work. So I was like, what's that mean? What is that? What is, and I mean, it was actually a very generous thing for him to say. But basically I'll have students come to me, as a teacher and say, can I be a writer? And what I say to them, I've sort of thought over the years is that there are, I think, 4 traits that I think you need, and they're not about talent, which I actually is a word that I'm suspicious of. I think they're about different things. So the first one is the love of language, that you really like. When you read a sentence, you not only like it, you want to eat it. You want to give birth to it. You just love words and you want to interact with them, which is why you're a writer, maybe not a dancer, a sculptor, or some other art form. You just want to work with words. So that's the first thing, that you really like sentences and you like words. The next thing is openness to the imagination, which is also something that isn't necessarily prized in our culture, right? Because it's about daydreaming, it's about lying, and that we live in 2 different realms as a writer. We live in the world of fact and honesty, which we want to be in, and also the realm of lying and imagining and belief in the power of that, that's important. I'm writing a story right now that's sort of based on someone I know, but I actually am having the most fun with it when I can just imagine things this character would do that isn't what this actual person has done. The next thing is the idea of being a highly sensitive person, which is something I just recently read about. And there's quizzes online you can take about being a highly sensitive person, which means basically, do you cry a lot at movies? Are you very sensitive to other people's feelings? Do you sometimes daydream a lot? Do you sometimes feel overwhelmed by feelings? Which are all qualities that can be difficult in the real world. However, in the writing world, they're very helpful because it means you're porous. It means you're open to the world and that you're affected by it and that you want to engage with it. So I think that's actually a helpful thing for being a writer. The next thing is a particular type of stubbornness, that you say in a kind of tantrumy-like way, I want to become a writer. I must become a writer. That is also helpful because there are a lot of obstacles that will be in your way, which is that, you can get a ton of rejections all along the way, that you need to learn to go past them. You can get criticism that feels unfair or misunderstanding your work. What you need to do is just feel like, I'm going to be a writer. But the other thing is you also need to listen selectively, which means that in a workshop, you may get some feedback that feels like it's not getting what you're trying to do. Someone is not understanding your work in sort of a basic way. So you have to learn to filter that. And then you also need to, but not be so blocked off, from something that you can't listen to things that would be helpful. So I think sometimes, it's learning to filter criticism in a constructive way that will help you get better. And then the final thing is the capacity for delusion, which I think is really helpful as a writer because it's about seeing yourself as a writer, even when the world doesn't, that we all have a very long apprenticeship with becoming a writer. We don't know if our novel will be finished. We don't know if it will sell. We don't know anything. We don't know if a story will be placed. You have to say, I am a writer when you sit down, even if you don't know. And actually the process of sitting down and engaging and giving yourself a chance every day will make you a writer. So it's delusion plus diligent work. Yes. That you can't just say, I'm going to be a writer and dance around and not do anything, but it's, I'm going to be a writer and I'm going to actually sit down every day. So
Yeah.
those are helpful, I think.
Yeah, that stubbornness and that determination is important when it comes to grabbing that time, right? To making the time to do the work.
Mhm, mhm. Yes, because the world often is there saying, don't work, come help me with this, or come do that, come have lunch, come do. And I think it's really important to say, no, I'm writing. And people may think you're not writing, you're just sitting there, but you are writing. You're sitting in front of the computer with a little notepad and you're doing the work.
Yeah, I just finished reading my friend Deborah Kopakin's memoir, Lady Parts.
Yeah.
It struck me how many times she talks about, she goes through a lot in that book, but there are times she's just, she becomes a single mom and she's working during the day writing, right? But writing for like health companies and doing freelance gigs. And it struck me how many times she talks about getting up at 4 or 5 in the morning to work on a book, to work on a novel, to work on the thing that is not bringing in money,
Right.
desperately needed money in that moment.
Right.
And that just, I really admired that focus and tenacity.
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, every writer you hear about, I mean, one of my favorite stories about a writer and work is Kafka writing the Metamorphosis, which apparently he wrote in 3 weeks with 3 jobs. Which, and it actually is about not wanting to go to work, because he turned into a cockroach. So I think it's funny. And I think, it's just like, right, tenacity is what makes one a writer, period, I think.
What would you say for the part about loving language? I
Yeah.
tend to say to students sometimes, like when we're looking at a piece, and especially noticing like the beauty of something that a writer has noticed, is like, okay, you can't get this on the paper unless you see it, right? How do you get them to wake up to noticing a moment, to noticing beauty, to noticing, the thing that's going to make a piece of writing sing?
Yeah, it's a great point. So I think, part of becoming a good writer, I think, is also flashing back to who we were as children, especially going with something like sensory detail, which is, I think, how we all came into the world, how we all become writers, in order to become observers. And it's just really noticing the sensory and the things that we tend to press down as adults because we just have to get through our day. So I think really being open to the sensory is a start. And then I also think, sometimes keeping a little diary of just observations that one makes in the day that you don't know if they will go anywhere. But I think in terms of looking at sentences, just reading and reading carefully and looking like, how is the writer through active verbs or through concrete details really creating a good sentence? So it's reading it really carefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that, Karen. And thank you for being with us today. Thank you to the viewer for joining us on this Faculty Friday. If you would like to know more about the Alma College MFA in Creative Writing, you can visit our website, alma.edu/MFA. You can also check here on our Facebook page for the number of open houses, virtual and in person, that we are having this fall. We hope you will join us and we hope you will apply for our upcoming winter residency. I'm Sophronia Scott. She's Karen Bender. Thank you. We'll see you again soon.